Jew, why do I need Christianity? Why do I need the New Testament?
Because if you believe the Old Testament prophesied the Messiah, then there is no Judaism without belief in Messiah. In fact, one of the 13 articles of faith by Moses Maimonides is that you must affirm the Messiah. So Christianity says your Messiah came. So if he has come and you reject him, then you're rejecting God.
And how do I know Jesus is the Messiah?
Well, that's what you have to examine, right?
Yeah.
So you have to examine the claims of Jesus and his followers, see if they're anchored in the Old Testament, and the interpretation of the Old Testament is correct.
But like, from what I understand, it's only like shown in Isaiah.
It's only in Isaiah? No, it's not. Even the rabbis point to many passages in the Hebrew scriptures. Rabbis who are not Christians say this is Messianic. For example, Daniel 7:13 and 14, where the prophet Daniel has a vision of the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. You have in the Talmud and Rashi himself saying this is King Messiah. And that's a passage that Jesus himself quoted in reference to himself. So a lot of the prophecies found in the New Testament where they say this passage is about Messiah, Psalm 2:7, Daniel 7:13, 14, Daniel 9, even the rabbis agree it's Messiah, though they reject Jesus.
Okay, so it's just not Jesus, but...
Yeah, they'll say it's Messiah, but they don't believe it's Jesus. But that's the dilemma for them. For example, Daniel 9, Rashi himself says that the timetable given in Daniel 9, Daniel 2, shows that the Messianic kingdom had to be established during the time when Titus, who is the general of the Roman armies, who came and destroyed the second temple. Rashi says that according to Daniel, it was during that time that the Messianic kingdom had to be established. So it admits that Daniel's timetable says Messiah was to show up and establish the kingdom during that time. Where is the Messiah? I'm going to show you.
After the Bar Kokhba revolt?
No, that's in the 2nd century. You're talking about in the 130s. I'm talking about 66 to 73 AD. Rashi says the Messianic kingdom was supposed to be established at that time. So where's the Messiah? Because he's saying that's the timetable given by Daniel. Here, I'll show it to you. So where is he?
I don't know.
Exactly, because when the Jews rejected Jesus, not all of them. The first believers were Jews. They were not Gentiles.
Rashi, or Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, was one of the most influential figures in Rabbinic Jewish tradition. He lived in 11th century France and is widely known for his comprehensive commentaries on the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, and the Babylonian Talmud. His writings go beyond interpretation. They serve as a foundational guide for virtually all traditional Jewish study. Rashi's interpretive method is rooted in the plain, literal meaning of the text, known as peshat. But he also weaves in midrashic or allegorical insights that reflect the teachings of earlier rabbis. His influence is so central that nearly every modern edition of the Hebrew Bible includes Rashi's commentary by default. When it comes to Daniel chapter 9, especially the passage concerning the 70 weeks, Rashi does not deny that this is a prophecy about the Messiah. In fact, he acknowledges that this passage speaks of the coming of the Messiah and the eventual destruction of Jerusalem. In his commentary, he affirms that the prophetic timeline given in Daniel leads to the destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans under the command of Titus in 70 AD. And this is where the tension lies. While the prophetic timeline aligns perfectly with the time of Jesus, Rashi still refuses to accept Jesus as the fulfillment of that prophecy. In essence, he concedes that the Messiah was supposed to arrive before the destruction of the temple, but denies that Jesus fits that role. This reveals an internal conflict between acknowledging the prophetic timing and rejecting the person of Jesus. The destruction of the temple by Titus was not just a national tragedy for the Jewish people, it also served as a powerful confirmation for many Christian interpreters. In Daniel 9:26, it is written that after the Messiah is cut off, the city and the sanctuary will be destroyed by the people of the prince who is to come. Titus, as the Roman general who led that campaign, fits this description precisely. Interestingly, Jesus himself had foretold this event in Matthew 24:2, predicting that not one stone of the temple would be left upon another, a prophecy fulfilled literally in 70 AD. For many Jewish rabbis, however, this event marked a turning point in how they interpreted these texts. Since Jesus was rejected as Messiah, the meaning of Daniel's prophecy had to be either reinterpreted symbolically or deferred to an undefined future. This ongoing dilemma haunts traditional Jewish interpreters who recognize the strength of Daniel's prophecy, yet cannot accept the logical conclusion it leads to if Jesus is acknowledged as its fulfillment. The rabbinic rejection of Jesus runs deep, both theologically and historically. In rabbinic expectations, the Messiah was supposed to come as a mighty king, bringing political liberation, restoring the kingdom of Israel, and rebuilding the physical temple in Jerusalem. Jesus, on the other hand, came in humility. He did not raise an army. He did not overthrow Rome, and he died by crucifixion, a form of death considered cursed under Mosaic law. This sharply contrasted with the nationalistic expectations the rabbis held and remains one of the core reasons for their rejection of him.
When they rejected Jesus, they didn't know what to do with the prophecy, so they had to reinterpret them. Here it is. So what does he say? Here he's talking about Daniel 9:24 to 27, 70 weeks decreed. He says, so that Israel should receive their retribution, the exile of Titus and subjugation. So he's saying when Titus destroyed Jerusalem, this is when Israel will receive their retribution. He says that the anointed one, because in Daniel 9 talks about Mashiach Nagid, the anointed one, the ruler, would be cut off. He says it was Agrippa who was killed in around 40 AD, 10 years after Jesus. But why Agrippa? Why did he say it's him? Why didn't he say it's Jesus? And he says Titus and his armies would come and destroy the temple. But then he says, and his end will come about by inundation, and his end will be damnation and destruction, for he will inundate the power of his kingdom through the Messiah. So he's saying that during this time, you would have the Messianic era, the Messianic kingdom. And he's placing it in that period of time when Jesus walked, was killed, was buried, and his followers claim that he rose from the dead and ascended to heaven. But then he doesn't admit it's Jesus.
So who is it if it's not Jesus?
That's what you got to tell them. But that's why so many Jews end up becoming followers of Jesus, because these are prophecies. So you got to tell Tovia, saying, hey, Tovia, where's the Messiah? What do you mean? Rashi says, according to Daniel 9 timetable, the Messianic kingdom had to have started at that era. An anointed one, a ruler, anointed Messianic figure would be cut off. All right, so these are some of the many prophecies that Christians point to in the Hebrew scriptures, and even the rabbis admit. Here is Chabad.org. This is their Bible. Messiah was supposed to show up at that time. Okay, where is he? Well, if you reject Jesus, Daniel's a false prophet, because his prophecy says Messianic kingdom Messiah would start at that time. Well, Jesus came and went. The temple was destroyed. The Jews say, well, he's not the Messiah. So is Daniel a false prophet? Obviously not. So here, let me now show it to you. Here it is. To terminate to the transgression and to end sin, so that Israel should receive their complete retribution and exile of Titus and his subjugation, in order that their transgression should terminate, their sin should end, and their iniquity should be expiated, in order to bring upon them eternal righteousness, to anoint upon them the Holy of Holies, the ark, the altars, the holy vessels, which they will bring to them through the King Messiah. So this is all going to happen through the King Messiah when Titus comes to destroy the temple in Jerusalem, 70 AD. Well, 70 AD came and went. Where's the Messiah?
So, like, what's the objection? Like, what's the Jewish objection to
I don't know why they rejected Jesus. Why did they continue to do so? Here. And his end will come about by inundation, and his end will be damnation and destruction, for he'll inundate the power of his kingdom through the Messiah. And it's all talking about Jerusalem and temple being destroyed in 70 AD. And it says this happens through the Messiah. What Messiah? You don't believe Jesus is the Messiah. So where is he? Now watch. And until destruction and extermination befall the dumb one, and the ruling of the abomination will endure until the day the destruction and extermination decreed upon it will befall in the days of the King Messiah. Okay, well, 70 AD came and went, buddy. Where's the Messiah? I don't know what to tell you.
The prophecy in Daniel chapter 9 speaks of 70 weeks that have been decreed for the people of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. In the Hebrew context, the word week, shabvia, refers to a unit of 7. And in this passage, it clearly means weeks of years, not days. So 70 weeks equals 70 times 7, giving us a total of 490 years. In verse 25, the text says that from the time the command is issued to rebuild Jerusalem until the arrival of the Anointed One, the ruler, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, making 69 weeks or 483 years. The term used for Messiah in both verse 25 and 26 is Mashiach, which literally means the anointed one. It comes from the root mashah, to anoint, an act typically performed upon kings, priests, or prophets who were specially appointed by God. This isn't just a political title. It carries deep eschatological weight, especially in this chapter, where it's tied to the ending of sin and the arrival of everlasting righteousness, as stated in verse 24. What's crucial is verse 26, where it says, "The Messiah shall be cut off." In Hebrew, yikaret Mashiach. The verb yikaret comes from the root karat, meaning to cut off, to sever, or even to execute in legal contexts. It's a strong word, signifying not just political removal, but actual death. So Daniel 9:26 doesn't merely foretell the arrival of the Messiah, it foretells his death. Then Daniel adds that after the Messiah is cut off, the city and the sanctuary will be destroyed by the people of the prince who is to come. Historically, this refers to the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD by the Roman general Titus, who later became emperor. Even Jewish tradition, as cited by medieval commentator Rashi and sources like Chabad.org, doesn't deny that this passage speaks of the Messiah and the destruction of the temple. In Rashi's interpretation, the phrase King Messiah, Melech HaMashiach, is even used in connection with this historical process. Yet rejecting Jesus presents a dilemma. If not him, then who appeared as the Messiah before 70 AD? And if no one did, then the prophecy fails. And that would make Daniel a false prophet, something neither Jews nor Christians are willing to accept. So textually, Daniel 9 sets a historically verifiable deadline for the coming of the Messiah. Etymologically, the word cut off indicates death, not just rejection. And historically, Jesus of Nazareth is the only figure who lived, ministered, and was killed within that prophetic window, acknowledged by both Jewish and non-Christian historians as a profoundly influential figure.